One of the most common questions I get asked as a dental practice broker is how much is my practice worth? Hi, I'm Trevor Kimball. I'm the president of Integrity Practice Sales, and I am excited today to break down in this short video how to think about the value of a dental practice. One of the most common ways that doctors usually come to me and they say, all right, Trevor, I think my practice is worth 75% of collections, or somebody told me that practices right now are selling for 80% of collections, or 70% of collections, 65, 95, whatever the case might be. One of the most common ways that doctors think about valuing a practice is as a percentage of collections. That can work, but it's usually not going to do the job. And so let me break down why exactly a percentage of collections isn't the best way to think about the value of your practice. Let's say we have two practices. They're in very similar locations. They're both single doctor practices. They have the same sort of build out, same number of operatories, same basic equipment, same size of teams, very similar practices. And let's say they're both collecting 1.2 million. An easy $100,000 a month makes our math simple. So we've got two practices, each collecting 1.2 million, similar locations, similar everything. Except in one of those practices, the overhead is 60%. That means the doctor's taking home 40% of that total 1.2 million. And that means he's taking home a total of $480,000. In this other practice, let's say the doctor has a 80% overhead. That means the doctor is taking home 20% of the collections for a total of $240,000. Which of these is more valuable to a young buyer with a lot of student loan debt who's coming in, wanting to buy a house, wanting to grow their family? If you are in that buyer's shoes, one of those practices has considerably more value to you than the other one. So really, when we're talking about the value of a practice, we're talking about the value of the transferable profit, the profit that can go from the seller to the buyer that they can then take home and have. That's their money. So clearly, the practice where the doctor is taking home $480,000 a year is much more valuable, twice as valuable as the practice where the doctor is taking home $240,000 a year. The best way to kind of think about, if you're going to be applying a rule of thumb, the best rule that we can apply is probably 2 times that net take-home doctor income, what we might call a seller's discretionary earnings or even adjusted EBITDA. So when we think about the profitability of the practice being a more important metric than collections generally, and any multiple that we apply, we want to apply to that profitability number. Now, how exactly we calculate that profitability number, that's the subject of its own video. But really what it boils down to is it's the doctor's to the actual profit of the business, any amortization, depreciation, any loan interest, and then some of those expenses that we run through the business but aren't necessary for running a dental practice. So travel to CE, or maybe a car that you run the lease through the business. Perfectly valid expenses, but not absolutely necessary for the running of the dental practice. So once we calculate that, what we call the seller's discretionary earnings, that profit number for the practice, that number after all the expenses are paid, then we can basically apply a 2x multiple to that and get a much better sense of the actual value of the practice. Now, if you really are doing it, and when we run through and do a full valuation of a practice, we're going to incorporate a number of different other elements. We're going to look at the location. We're going to look at the facilities. We're going to look at any specialties, procedures referred out. We're going to look at the insurance mix. We're going to look at all sorts of different systems factors within the practice to basically identify the transferable profit that can go from seller to buyer. That's what's going to create our market. From there, once we figure out that transferability, the number that's actually going to move from the seller to the buyer, then we can look at supply and demand. We can look at the location factors and all these different pieces that we have access to as brokers. We're one of the largest dental practice brokers in California, and come up with the value that way. So if you're thinking about selling your practice and you want to understand, hey, what's the value of my practice? The best way to do it is to try and come up with and work with your consultant, call us, call another broker. They can help you walk through what is the take-home amount that I can see from my practice. If my practice was optimized for cash, which isn't the best way to optimize a practice from a tax liability standpoint or any other standpoint, but if I was just optimizing my practice for cash, how much could I take home and then 2x that? That's the best rule of thumb. Obviously, again, all those other factors apply, location especially. But all that being said, that's your best bet. From there, you can go on and have a much better idea of what your practice is actually worth. And if you'd like our team to come in and do a thorough, pretty comprehensive valuation of your practice where we're taking in all of these market-based considerations, we do that for the low price of $1,500, and we're happy to do those. And if you list with us and sell, we'll obviously credit that back to you at the close. So check out the link in the description for more information. And I hope this video was valuable. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.